So far, we learned about bioinformatics research in Indian industries. Now, let us see what is the present status of bioinformatics in Africa in terms of education, internship, job opportunities, and research. I would like to welcome Ms. Paidamoyo, who works as the Bioinformatics Team Leader at the Center for Proteomic and Genomic Research and works 50% of her time as the Bioinformatics Coordinator at DIPLOMICS, a CPGR grant program. Her main role is in overseeing efforts to develop different methods to understand data generated from the different omics fields the organizations serve. She also enjoys learning new concepts from managing these projects. In these roles, she has aided or led in building successful products and complete projects. This has refined her marketing, project, product, and team management skills. She has enjoyed and has found that her strength is in diligently stitching the different components needed to deliver successful services. She is also pursuing her PhD program, which looks to explore factors that contribute to developing competencies in the evolving biomedical field that experiences a constant change of scope in work like at the CPGR. Ultimately, to improve on products and outcomes which attracts funding in business to continue to boost with a particular focus on work done in Africa. That was indeed an introduction though. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Paidamoyo. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see a screen.
Perfect.
And presentation. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so thank you for that introduction. So I'll get right into it. I'll start off with the CPGR and I'll explain how the two other organizations fit into this. So here's a summary of where everything sits. So the Department of Science and Innovation in South Africa funds different programs. And one of them is the Technology Innovation Agency, which funds the CPGR, which is my primary employer. And the other two organizations that I'm going to speak about are DIPLOMICS, which is a program. So the CPGR hosts that. And the CPGR also has a subsidiary startup, which is called Artisan Biomed. So in these different organizations, that's where the different sort of titles come out. So in DIPLOMICS, I'm a Bioinformatics Coordinator. At the CPGR, I'm the Bioinformatics Team Leader. And at Artisan, I'm a Bioinformatics Consultant. So all of these, although are connected, are quite independent and have different visions. So it's quite interesting to be in either of them. And then I'll touch a little bit more about what I do in them. I'll strictly be focusing on the bioinformatics aspect of each one of them, but they actually do quite a lot. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about them, you're welcome to contact me. So I'll start off with the CPGR. So the CPGR stands for Center for Proteomic and Genomic Research, and it is a nonprofit organization that I mentioned is funded by the Department of Science and Innovation in South Africa through one of the programs called TIA, so that's Technology and Innovation Agency. So we sit in Woodstock in Cape Town in South Africa. It works mainly in the model of a contract research organization. So focuses on different services and training. It is omics focused, so omics research and life science innovation in Africa. So the main omics fields that it focuses on, it offers comprehensive services in genomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, and bioinformatics. So it houses quite a lot of world-class infrastructure. So the organization itself has a wide range of instruments. So if you'd like to know a lot more about the different instruments that are at the CPGR, they have an Unpacking the Toy Box series. So if you go to CPGR's LinkedIn, you'll be able to follow that series as they explain each of the machinery that they have. So the reason why I'm mentioning this wide variety of capabilities is that along with that, we offer bioinformatics support. So in terms of the work that I do for the CPGR, it's a sort of in-house support for all of the wide range of services that could be offered through all of this machinery. Okay, so CPGR Bioinformatics, an overview. So as I mentioned, the projects that happen in the lab can come through our bioinformatics. So it is an optional service. So if you need bioinformatics support for any wet lab services that you get, that's what we're there for. We have different clients. So the clientele is from industry and academia, but mostly from academia. The clients are researchers, are students, consortiums. So I gave here an example of a consortium that we're a part of. So it's a big consortium called MADCAP, so Men of African Descent, Cancer of the Prostate. And this is a custom array that was created. It is a project that is funded by the NIH, so that would fall under a consortium. And we also have commercial clients that are either doing research to better their product or their offering, or they're using our lab to run some of their services. So in terms of the bioinformatics team, because we have a wide range of projects that come in, although we have standard pipelines, we tailor make each product to each client, whether they're from research or they're a commercial client. We will tailor make the solution that we make for them. The reason why we do this is because, one, the clients are different, two, their objectives are going to be different. So even if it's an RNA-seq project, each client will want something different. So I will explain what I mean now after I explain the makeup of the bioinformatics team. So the bioinformatics team is made up of bioinformatic analysts. So the skill set in terms of the people that we hire is based on the analysis that we do. So it has to, when we're hiring someone, it has a focus on genomics and proteomics. The CPGR being a CRO, so a contract research, it means that you have more defined turnaround times because it's a service that you're offering someone. Unlike in academia, where it's a research project and you have, for example, a year to complete your master, the turnaround time is not as strict and as defined. So the core skill that we need for our bioinformaticians, so this will differ from organization to organization. It will differ from industry to industry, depending on what you're doing. So when I'm talking about core skill set, I'm talking about a core skill set that's needed for you to be a bioinformatician at the CPGR. So here, our core skill set when we're hiring someone is programming. Why? Because it's the main skill that's needed to implement the solutions based on the different services that we offer in the lab. Our core language, we use Python. Why? Because it's easy to learn and easy to use. We try to have a standard language that everyone uses. If you have another language that you prefer or you're well versed in, we still welcome you because that may be useful. Additional fundamental requirements is experience in R and Bash, because we also do use that, and some knowledge of biology. Why? Because most projects are very holistic. You're not only going to use Python. Sometimes you'll need to use Bash. Sometimes you'll need to use R. Sometimes what's really needed for the project is a good understanding of the biology. So all of these are important because we also collaborate with the wet lab. So that's another good thing about the CPGR, is that all of this is housed under one roof, from the wet lab to the analysis. So a client will have from start to finish, and you can actually go to the person in the lab and they can even tell you that. You can say, for sample 2, I'm seeing that the QC is looking a bit fuzzy, and then the person in the lab can tell you that, oh, you know what, these are the QC metrics, and when I was handling it, they didn't send, the aliquot was way less than the other ones, and I was just trying to make it work. So it helps you understand the data a little bit more. So all of these skill sets are needed because we apply a holistic approach to solving problems. And then the bioinformatics platform or department itself, we work collaboratively internally. So as a team, we collaborate together. If someone is experiencing certain issues, that's why I noted that it's important for us to at least have common programming languages or skill sets, so that internally we can collaborate, and externally we collaborate quite a lot with the clients and with the wet lab. We have to make sure that we can integrate to assist each other. So whatever system is in place, it's important for us to have a common language, as I said, so that we can integrate into the same system. One of the things that our platform or our department has to consider is storage. So we have a lot of clients that come into the CPGR, we store their data. We have to consider how we're managing storage. We have to consider connectivity. Sometimes we have cloud solutions, or we have to upload or download databases. So connectivity is a big consideration. We have to consider high performance computing. So as you all may know, that some tools are really computationally intensive and you cannot do it on your laptop. You would need a high performance computer. You would also have to consider data sharing platforms or methods, because you also want to integrate externally into a client system because maybe they receive data in a certain way. So you would have to consider that. A very important one is you have to consider code hosting platform. We use GitHub. So you have to make sure that it's a very standardized system at the CPGR. So they are ISO accredited, which means there's a standard way that you do everything. It makes sure that you can always backtrack if you have a problem, that things are reproducible. So to fulfill one of those requirements is we put all of our code up on GitHub. It makes sure that anyone else can come and replicate it. So yeah, that's an important consideration. You also need to consider tools and software and related licenses. So sometimes you only need a license for one particular client. So you have to think that through to say, how will I complete this project? So those are the main considerations when setting up a bioinformatics platform. And then bioinformatics as a service. So this is quite different from academics. We've had bioinformatics analysts who've joined the team, and they're testamented this to say that it's a very different environment when you are now offering bioinformatics as a service. It's a bit more refined. You need to be a bit more sure about what you're doing because it's helping inform someone else's project or someone else's service. So the next line where I say a service means an offering that requires a specific result. So when a client comes in, they want something specific at the end. So whatever you're doing, you're trying to get to that point. In research, if you sort of reach certain blocks, you can, take your time to think another way to do it or to drop it. When you're offering it as a service, the client expects a result at the end. So you'll find that bioinformatics as a service, you employ quite a lot of business principles with a high emphasis on human capital. So in terms of my team, I gear it mainly towards soft skills. You'll find very quickly when you're offering bioinformatics as a service that your soft skills are going to be such a big component. So for example, something as little as communication, whether you're communicating internally as a team or externally to a client, you need to communicate effectively because it reduces scope creep. So scope creep is the project slowly getting bigger and bigger because people are slowly adding requirements. So you'll find with clients who are researchers, they're quite excited about their project. And what they'll do is they'll come and say, oh, can the data do this? Or can the data do that? Or can we do this? And can we do that? And that increases the budget, the turnaround time. And it just prolongs the project. So if you learn how to communicate effectively, then that sort of reduces scope creep. So you'll find that a lot of soft skills have to come in with your hard skills. So you have tighter, more defined deadlines. So there's a little bit more pressure in a service environment. So I think this environment works better for individuals who enjoy solving like varied problems. So if you enjoy solving, some people enjoy looking at a particular protein for the next 20 years, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people like looking at proteins today and looking at genes tomorrow, and tomorrow looking at a specific organism. I think this environment will work well for the latter, someone who likes looking at different problems and solving them and being able to move on. Okay, in terms of service output, so it's dependent on the client's objectives. So at the end of the day, when we're giving a client a result, if someone comes in, usually this is what we give them. Either we're giving them data because they want the analysis done to a certain point and they're going to do downstream analysis by themselves. So some people might just say, give me my raw data. Some people might say, QC my data and then give it to me. Some people might say, analyze the data up to a point where you have your OTUs and then give it to me. or sometimes we do analysis and they will interpret the results themselves. Sometimes we'll do analysis and training because they would like to analyze future data sets by themselves. So that's also for researchers who are continuing with their project. They might want you to do it the first time, and as they get more data, then they might want to do training so they can do it by themselves. Training, so you could train someone because they would like to analyze their own data sets from scratch. Collaborative, which means that the client would like us to significantly contribute to their project. So they would like us to analyze and interpret and actually give results and then include us in papers and so on. Sometimes it's consulting, so they would like to build it themselves, but just need someone as a sounding board or someone to check in with. So they will purchase, let's say, 8 hours, and then 2 hours a week, we have a meeting where they take us through their solution. So here is just an example of training. So we get a lot of inquiries about RNA-seq, and we thought it would be a good idea to have an educational webinar where we just take people through basics of the analysis so that they have an understanding of it. And sometimes when people understand it better, then they can say, oh, you know what, this will be too much for me and I'd rather you do the analysis. They can make an informed decision about how you want them to help you. So from this educational webinar, some people will come up and say, actually, this is too much and I'd just like you to do the analysis. Or some people would say, oh, this looks manageable and I'd like to take a stab at it. So I would like to take this consulting hour approach where I go and I do it, and then we meet every week if I'm experiencing problems. So those are the basic service outputs at the CPGR. So now I'm going to move to DIPLOMICS, where I am a Bioinformatics Coordinator. So DIPLOMICS, as I mentioned, let me just go back to it. It is hosted by the CPGR, and it's an infrastructure program. So the approach involves mainly collaboration, capacity development, and optimization. And this requires, amongst a lot of things, but partners, experts, and cooperation from my point of view. And this is just a summary of what DIPLOMICS does. So our aim is to build world-class omics infrastructure. And how do we do that? It's either we're placing instruments, and this is the impact that it has. And these are the impacts, whether they're going to be direct, induced, indirect, or cumulative. And over time, you can sort of tell like an indirect impact and sorry, I've got a chat. An indirect impact. And then enables access to students and researchers, and that's done in various ways. So in terms of training, in terms of high visibility, high impact projects, and then the different impacts are, you get world-class reputational gain when you do high impact, high visibility projects. So it speaks to our capability to do things. So if I link it back to what I'm currently doing for my PhD now, all of these, as I said, although they're connected, they have different focuses. So maybe just to speak about high visibility, high impact project for my PhD, where I speak about once we have a good reputation of doing reproducible and good doing research that has good outcomes, then we can have that reputational gain. And over time, that will attract funding or that will attract business. So that's like a cumulative or a long-term impact. But as time goes on, you'll see the impact of it later. So I'm going to speak about DIPLOMICS again, mainly with respect to bioinformatics. But if you guys have any questions that relates to anything else, you can get in touch with me after. So DIPLOMICS, there are 3 omics fields that it branches into. So genomics, proteomics, and metabolomics, and bioinformatics. Each is informed by a working group of experts, and each has an overarching domain expert who is the coordinator. So for example, I am the Bioinformatics Coordinator, and there is a Bioinformatics working group that has a Bioinformatics chair. And these different branches, so genomics, proteomics, and metabolomics, and bioinformatics, have had many successful initiatives. So these initiatives range from either training, instrument placement, or support for high impact initiatives. So you'll find here that, for example, genomics would have a training outreach, or bioinformatics would have a training outreach, and then you develop skills or you increase awareness of a particular field or a particular technology, and then there are different types of impacts that happen over time. And then I'm going to talk about bioinformatics. So information gathering is key to all of our successful initiatives. So before we make a decision, you sort of research and say, maybe this is the need or this is the current situation. And then you sort of now research a little bit more to be what is the best way to resolve it. So we would use this working group that has all of these experts either as a source or as a soundboard or as a source of initiatives themselves. So of the current needs with respect to bioinformatics, we have four main areas of interest. So establishing bioinformatics as a service, improving bioinformatics at project design, enabling or improving bioinformatics training, and inspiring the next generation. So all of the above help improve directly or indirectly overall outcomes. So of the list that I've said here, I'm just going to expand a little bit more about it. So bioinformatics as a service. So we launched Clarity, which is a bioinformatics marketplace. It hosts expert bioinformatics consultants who are managed by an experienced concierge. It is virtual, therefore it's accessible across the globe. Currently, it's subsidized to the researchers to help establish it as a service and its worth as a service. So it goes back to what we're talking about, building a reputation so that it either attracts funding or attracts business. So that's one of the main reasons why it's subsidized to researchers. We have a strong emphasis on good project design because we have found in terms of when we are doing information gathering and we're really talking about what are the struggles people are having with bioinformatics is that when they're now doing the analysis, they feel that the bioinformatics is failing them. It's not necessarily that the bioinformatics is failing, is that if you put good data in, then you'll get good data out. So if your data is not, it's not that the data is necessarily bad, but it's not the right data to answer your research question. So for example, your data may have passed in the lab and the QC is good, but if you're trying to do whole exome sequencing or you're trying to look for a variant and you have RNA-seq data, it won't answer your question. So it's the same way, if you haven't designed your project to get the data that will help you answer the question, then you're always going to find problems. So that's why we have a strong emphasis on good project design. So currently of the projects that have come through our marketplace, these are mostly projects after data has been produced, which means that we would have already passed the stage of project design. So we found that clients may have tried to take a stab at analyzing their data and have found difficulties, and then now they'll go and find a service provider. And in that, other than just analyzing, we're really trying to roll back and get the best that we can out of the project. So again, this is also evidence supporting our initial finding that project design is a really important part of design. Considering bioinformatics at project design is very important. So bioinformatics as a service, we also get involved in high impact projects. So the nanopore project that we currently have now, we have bioinformaticians from our marketplace working with the different partners in the DIPLOMICS network. So that's how DIPLOMICS handles bioinformatics as a service. So speaking a little bit more about bioinformatics and project design, so 46% of projects fail because of poor project design. Why? They did not properly consider the needs for data analysis. So if you want to look at, I'm just going to use an analogy, if you want to count how many apples there are, that means that when you go to the market, you must get apples so that you can count apples. So sometimes when you're designing a project, what you need is replicates in order for you to have confidence in your data. And if you don't put in replicates at the beginning, then you will not have confidence in your data at the end. It sounds like a very simple thing, but it's a small gap between like molecular biologists and bioinformaticians. So we strongly encourage that bioinformaticians are involved at the beginning of the project. So some of the efforts by DIPLOMICS have been mainly in awareness, because when we do speak to researchers or students, a light bulb sort of goes off where we talk about, project design. So just spreading awareness that it is important to, or they don't know that, it's something that they should do to involve a bioinformatician at the beginning when they're planning out their project. So awareness. So last year, this year, we had a little campaign where we released some lighter adverts just to say, Patrick Shores do it right the first time. So as I was explaining some of the projects that we've had, that after the data was already there, we're trying to do patchwork, where we're trying to roll back and trying to get the best that we can out of the data. And then another one is a project without bioinformatics. It's like a car without wheels. It's not going anywhere. So if your car does not have wheels, it's not going anywhere. You can create your project. You can run the samples. But again, if you want to count apples, you have to go and buy apples at the market. So this is also just an explanation of how our marketplace works from our brochure. We sort of welcome you to it, give you why it's important, explain our process, and then tell you what bioinformatics is, and then just say, let's work together. Okay, and then bioinformatics training, we do this mainly through partners. We found that collaboration works well. If we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we won't. There are already partners that are doing it quite well. And the aim really is to enable through facilitating. There are two main groups that we are currently focusing on. So it's the bioinformaticians themselves, because maybe they may need to upskill or get a new skill, and the wet lab scientist. So it's actually important for my molecular biologists, for example, to have an understanding of bioinformatics. So it might be good and well for us to say they should include it at project design, but if they're also not aware of, downstream what needs to be in place or how things work, then although they know it's important, they don't know how to consider it. So it's also important to train, even if it's going to be a basic training of bioinformatics, even if they're not going to do their bioinformatics by themselves, it's important for them to at least have an idea of how everything works. That way, then they can best engage a bioinformatician to get the best out of them. They will, for example, already know that when I meet my bioinformatician, these are the things that we need to cover, or this is the critical information that I need to give them. So here's just two examples of training through our partner at Thermo Fisher, and training through partnering with ICGB. Okay, and then we're going to talk about future bioinformaticians. I'm just checking my time. I'm out of time, but I'm going to be done soon. So future bioinformaticians, so these are high school outreaches, so human capacity development. So we focus a lot on low resource schools, just to stimulate interest in science and negate quite a lot of misconceptions they have about science, and also to give them exposure to this, so they might not even know certain things are aware. So we take them through very high level scientific concepts, and we end, for example, in them doing like a mock code, and then I tell them a little bit more about bioinformatics and tell them all of the other different science fields that are involved, from example, from start of strawberry DNA extraction to the end. All right, and then we're going to go into the last one, which is artisan biomed. This is mainly focused on precision medicine. So one way to think about it is that all of the research that is being done is in order to inform solutions. So Artisan sort of takes it from the step where they're now utilizing these solutions, but they have a focus on precision medicine. And they also have a focus on people of African descent, because as we know from research, African populations or genomes are underrepresented in research. So that's why the focus is there. And it also better serves their population group in South Africa. So precision medicine gives better insights to disease, and that's another reason why artisans sort of focus into this, better insights into disease, in particular for people of African descent, because if the research on people of African descent is underrepresented, it means that the solutions that come out do not best serve them. So they also have a training arm to them as well, where they want to empower clinicians and medical experts and different stakeholders in precision medicine. So here they're creating products for consumers and clinicians, and it's usually a commercial product. So I'm just going to go into a little bit more about the bioinformatics with respect to artisan. So it is going to be the same skill set that we use for the CPGR, but you have to refine it to make a commercial project. So initially you're using it for researchers. So usually like a plot is the product that you're giving them, or data, or a bar graph. But with Artisan, because it is a product that's going to a client, it means that if it's going to be a report, it's going to be a more refined and commercial report. So in addition to the programming skills, you have to have additional skills that help you make it a product. So for example, additional skills can be outsourced and easily integrated. It could be a user experience engineer who comes in. And the additional skills as well are mostly non-computational. So sometimes you just need a clinical geneticist who's going to come and better inform your product. So as I said, the initial considerations are similar to the CPGR. The pipelines, everything that you're doing is centered towards a product, right? So you have to make it easy to use. It has to be well documented. It has to be easy to update. The speed and the storage and the quality are critical. So it's very different from academic research, where, for example, if you have a variant caller, you can use an open source variant caller that's going to take 2 days to run, because 2 days in 2-year masters is not a significant amount of time. But if you have a client using an open source, 2 days is like already too much. Someone is waiting for their result. So speed, storage, and quality are critical. So there's a wide range of products and services. It's simple as a COVID test. And although the testing may be simple, providing it as a service is what's complex. So I'm just going to give a quick example of one of their products, which is Be Happy to Be You. It's the most comprehensive ancestry test in Africa with an international client base. So it's forward-thinking. It's a forward-thinking effort because they would like to use the rich informative data to give further insights to people. So I'm just going to go through that. So this is actually an extract from my report, which shows my ancestry. So here, the bioinformatics considerations, as I've mentioned before, are going to be, you have to test. It's going to be a complex pipeline. You have to test it. You have to manage quite a lot of things, computing power, analysis, and all of those things. And then for the last slide, you're going to try to extract as much reusable information as you can. So e.g. with this ancestry report, because you're using the GSA and it has a lot of informative markers, you can use some of the pharmacogenomic markers to then give insights on drug usage that's related to, for example, in this one, COVID. So although it's the data that comes is rich and informative and it's complex to interpret and report, Artisan has had such a great start by taking time to understand all of these complexities.